And from Net Elixir, I will lead you through the introduction of Day 1, Web Analytics Basics. Following the success of our #SEO Week this past March, we are so excited to bring you another week of knowledge sharing. This time, it's based off of our inspiration of Albert Einstein as we dive into analytics. All right, so let's get started. Just a little bit about Net Elixir. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary with a mission to help digital marketers succeed online. We do this in several ways. We have our own technology, and we have resources and tools that are used by businesses worldwide. We also have 3 global offices with our headquarters here in Princeton, New Jersey. We also have a sales office in London and a tech and operations office in Hyderabad, India. We are a growing team of fanatically analytical search marketers who have a combined 5.5 million hours of hands-on retail search marketing experience. So these are our 3 business lines. We here at Net Elixir are a full-service agency, and we do everything across the board for our clients with specializing in paid search, SEO, and analytics. We've also branched out to include services such as social media and strategy. We have our own technology that is unique to Net Elixir. It is called Elixir. It is our own marketing platform. Within that, we have Elixir Marketplace, which has 21 free search marketing tools and apps that are utilized by 60,000 plus users in 171 countries, which is great. And then we also have Elixir SEO, which is an SEO toolkit and task manager. And this is just one of the ways that we help digital marketers succeed online, no matter their size or their budget. And then finally, we have our consulting services, and we've been proud to work as analytics consultants for companies such as Toys R Us and Brady Corp. So here I will give you some details on our analytics packages. Our standard offerings are tailored to your experience level with Google Analytics. For those who have been using GA for a while and are fairly comfortable with the data collection, but maybe are a little bit challenged in having the time or resources to make regular dives into that data, we have our Insight subscription services that are delivered monthly or weekly. And finally, for all you data junkies out there, and for some of the more advanced members of our audience, we have 3 unique services whose sole purpose is to help you identify new revenue opportunities using the data in your GA account. Also, our analytics team does custom consulting projects, so we'd be happy to discuss with you any analytics challenges you are facing. So these are a glimpse of some of the great clients that we've been able to work with over the past. We've had a strong focus in retail, and we've recently broken out into the travel industry. One thing that we're very proud of over here at Net Elixir is that we're fanatically analytic and we're results driven, so we give that to our customers. And we understand that no 2 businesses are alike, no matter what what industry they're in, which segment. We take the time to really understand the details and individual nuances of our client's business, and thus we can create a customized search strategy for each one. So now I'll go into a little bit about NetElixir University. We started this program of sharing knowledge in 2012 with aspirations to reach 10,000 businesses by the end of this year. We're pleased to say that we are fairly close to achieving that goal, having reached a little over 8,000 businesses so far, which is great. And it looks like that number will be close to 9,000 by the end of Analytics Week. So please feel free to invite your friends and colleagues to this event. And we encourage you to join our NetElixir University LinkedIn page to collaborate and share knowledge and insights with thought leaders in academia and in the retail industry. So before I run through our calendar for Analytics Week, I'd like to take a moment and explain why we are doing this series. You know, it's not because we're a company full of fanatically analytical digital marketers, although that does help. It's because through our work with somewhere around 300 retailers, we see that frankly, most of them are just not doing it right. Our speakers today will tell you the secret to doing analytics right is knowing the right questions to ask, knowing where to get those questions, and then most importantly, turning that knowledge into actionable insights. So here's the calendar for the remaining days of the week. We'll have today our team from NetElixir, Don and Udayan, present to you on Web Analytics Basics. Tomorrow we will have Marlena, who's a Google Product Specialist, give you the key benefits of Google's Universal Analytics. Wednesday we'll have our two clients, Melissa Ananson from PC NameTag and Jordan Levy from Glow Professional, run through their custom dimensions and their custom retail analytics hacks. And then on Thursday, we'll finish up with Don presenting some of the findings from his recently completed study of over 500,000 transactions that featured over 89,000 unique conversion paths featuring 20 different marketing channels. I promise you, you will find these results extremely surprising and you don't want to miss out. So just some housekeeping points. There are no stupid questions when it comes to web analytics. Don frequently says to us, I learned something new about GA today, and he's been using this tool for over 8 years. And as we'll hear on Tuesday from Marlena, Google is very focused on evolving this platform to a user-centric model. And the past couple of years have seen this already powerful free tool become even more powerful with respect to the questions it can answer. So if you couldn't do something a couple years ago, you might be able to do it now. So please ask us. Just so you know, all submitted questions will be posted on our blog tomorrow, including any questions we couldn't discuss live or ones we couldn't answer right away. And make sure you're on the lookout for an email that will be sent to you directly after this webinar that will contain links to the presentation, as well as a quick survey that we hope you fill out to give us some of your feedback. And tweet us what you're seeing. Please help us share this knowledge by tweeting #analytics and share with your friends and colleagues. And as we mentioned, we'd love for you to come come every day during the week, so please consider joining us and registering at netelixir.com/analyticsweek. And finally, we'd love to hear from you, so please share your thoughts and feedbacks by emailing them at university@netelixir.com. So I'll give you a rundown and introduce you to our speakers. We have Don Rodriguez, who is the Director of Analytics. As I mentioned, he's been using GA since 2007. He comes to NetElixir as a former e-commerce director from a specialty retailer, and before that he was an electrical engineer. And he currently teaches classes at Rutgers University, the State University of New Jersey. We also have our founder and CEO, Udayan Bose, joining us on today's webinar. He founded Party Gaming, and he also is a guest lecturer at Cornell, City University of New York, and the India School of Business. So, like we said, there are no stupid questions, so please feel free to ask us any questions in GA regarding measuring or tracking, anything like that. And we'll set aside 10 to 15 minutes at the end of today's session for a live Q&A. For all attendees of Analytics Week, we want you to take action now. We are offering a complimentary mid-year health check, which includes either a Google Analytics, PPC, or SEO analysis. All you have to do is email us at university@netelixir.com with the subject line GA, PPC, or SEO, and we'll get back to you with one of our experts right away. And as the holiday season approaches for retailers, it's definitely something you want to take advantage of. So here are the topics that we'll be highlighting on today's webinar. And as I mentioned, we will have a Q&A and live demonstration at the end. So I'm going to pass this over to Don Rodriguez, and he can walk you through tracking traffic.
Almost 80% of the revenue in the referral category could have been attributed more specifically to a marketing channel. And that added up to 31,000 orders and almost $3.5 million. So between these two buckets, you have $9.5 million of revenue, which is more than 50% of the revenue in our study, which could have been attributed more accurately. So that's why we're talking about tagging URLs today. And when it comes to tracking traffic, the devil is definitely in the details. And I'll just go show you one example of a fairly common mistake that people can make. And I've highlighted there the medium variable in the URL parameter, just to show you that a simple little typo can cause traffic to get misappropriated. And you can see here where it says not set. And you can see here it says medium equals email. What happened here was there was a typo that caused the medium variable not get set. And the impact of this is in the email channel report in Google Analytics. These 4 campaigns are not included because the medium for value of email never got set. Simple little typo causes misattributed traffic. Right? When it comes to tracking your traffic in Google Analytics, you have 5 URL parameters that you can use. They are source, medium, campaign, campaign term, and campaign content. Source is exactly what you think it is. It is the source of your traffic. So if it's an external link bringing traffic back to you, source generally has the domain name of that site. In email marketing, for example, it's very common for digital marketers to put the value of their list or their segmentation that they use for a specific campaign in the source. Medium is the channel. Think of it as the channel. So, for example, paid search has the default value of CPC for medium, and that stands for cost per click. It's also very common for people to use medium equals email to track their email marketing traffic. Campaign is exactly what you think it is. It's the name of the campaign. So, for example, if you use AdWords and you have auto-tagging enabled for Google Analytics, it will grab the campaign name from your AdWords account and put that in that variable, and that will show up in your reports in Google Analytics. Similarly, term can be used to track keywords. So if you're using AdWords, it will put the bid keyword into that variable. So you can look at data in Google Analytics by paid search term. And then finally, content tracks exactly what you think it is. It tracks content. So from an advertising point of view, this has something to do with the creative. Either the ad copy, it could just be as simple as saying banner to denote that it was a banner ad as opposed to a text ad, but it has something to do with tracking the actual ad creative. And I have included the URL here for Google Analytics URL Builder, which is a great tool for those of you who are not 100% confident that you know how to construct the URL with these parameters in it. And it's just basically a form where you enter, for example, your website URL, as I've done there, the value you want for source, the value you want for medium. In this case, I'm using email because this is for an email link. You can add a term and a content parameter if you'd like, and then the third required is campaign name. And then you click on Generate URL, and your output looks something like this, which is a 100% foolproof URL that you can include in a link that will deliver traffic to you and have it attributed correctly. And just real briefly, you can see how it gets constructed. UTM source there, the medium value of email, the keyword value I put in there, the content value of banner, and then the campaign name. And the last thing I wanted to note here, for those of you who might not be familiar with how this works with URL parameters, when you're constructing a URL with multiple parameters, the very first one gets offset by the question mark that you can see here, and then the subsequent ones get offset by ampersands. And in that previous example, when you download the slides later tomorrow, you can go back and look, and you'll see that one of the typos was they missed the ampersand. Some of you may know that Google Analytics is case sensitive, which is the easiest way to mess up your tracking. We saw this in 4 out of 10 accounts in our study. And an easy way for you to figure out if you might have some issues with, for example, case sensitivity or any other issues with your tracking is to look at the default channel grouping report under acquisition, go to channels. And you're looking to see if you have this highlighted category called other in parentheses. That's an indication that you might have something mistagged or you're using a schema that it's not supported by Google's default channel definitions. And just to show you for a case-sensitive example, items number 3 and 6 here have capitalized words that don't fit Google's default channel definitions. So for example, number 3, email is capitalized, right, which causes that traffic to get put in this other bucket instead of the email bucket down here. Similarly, item number 6, you can see Google is capitalized and CPC is capitalized, and right above it you can see the proper way, which is lowercase. Again, the capital G and the capital CPC cause that traffic to go in this bucket instead of the paid search bucket, right? Simple little things like upper and lowercase can drive you crazy. So how do you fix this? Well, there are 2 ways to fix it. First, you can fix it going forward, and then you can fix it in historical views. So in terms of fixing it going forward, you can add what is called a filter to your Google Analytics view that you use for your reporting. Essentially what you can do is you can add a filter that does a find and replace, like a Control-H in Microsoft Word, that will find every capital letter and replace it with its lowercase equivalent. And I'll just walk you through the steps here real quickly on how that works. So you go to your admin view first, click on filters, then you click on create new filter, and down here under filter type, you're going to choose the lowercase filter, and then under filter field, the pick list, you're going to choose hostname, because hostname is what contains the referring URL. And then you can actually verify that your filter is set up correctly and would actually have changed data in your view. And once you're convinced that you have it set up correctly, then you just hit save. And what it looks like when you're done is when you look at your filters menu in your admin section, you'll see down here at the bottom, lowercase URLs was added, right? So very simple. Again, if you're not familiar with it, filters only affect data as they come into your account, so it only affects data moving forward. So you can't fix historical data with a filter. But you can fix historical data with what's called a custom channel group. Google has their own set of channel definitions, some of which I have shown here on the left, right? But for example, Google's default channel definition for paid search is just called paid search. And in this example I have here, I'm showing you a generic paid search and a brand paid search, right? Which you can define yourself as well. So the beauty of custom channel groups is it allows you to define the channel groups based on your business, right? So here's another example where we have some traffic attributed to other. And here's a view of what's causing that. You can see the first 4 of them have a median value, which is not a standard median value. And the last 2, which I've highlighted, have the median value of not set, much like the earlier example that I showed you. So what you can do is you go into your admin under Personal Tools and Assets, and you click on Custom Channel Groups, and you can define your own set of channel groups, of which one would be email. And in this example, I'm showing you how I captured both the medium, where the capital E is involved, as well as under source, for those not set situations, you can see where I have added list track and the LIS string to match on source, so that both of those traffic, that campaign data gets put into the email channel. And so once you have your channel set up, this is what your channel list will look like, your channel report will look like. And what you'll notice here is that there is no longer an other category. So in defining these custom channels, I have basically attributed all of the traffic to some type of channel category that is somehow, in this case, this is a view from our study, on the conversion based study. It has something to do with some sort of marketing campaign, which was the goal of that study. So, okay, so that's how you can look at, and custom channel groups work historically. You set it up, you can go back and look 6 months ago and have the data attributed correctly. And that's the beauty of custom channel groups. All right. So before I pass it off to Udayan to talk to you about goals, we have a poll for you. All right. Let's get that poll up. Okay. So how long have you been using Google Analytics? Your choices are more than 5 years, like myself, 3 to 5 years, or less than 3 years. So if you could go ahead and start voting, and we'll keep it open for a few seconds. Okay. Go for a few more.
We'll get done to 100%. We'll get done to 100%.
Yeah? Okay. Ready? I'm going to stop. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're stopping. Okay. All right, now it goes back. Perfect. All right, here's the day I'm going to talk to you about goals.
Thank you, Don. We have been playing a bit of musical chairs out here. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Fascinating results of the polls. Very, very fascinating. I mean, our polls are a great way for us to understand how to customize the presentation so that it really sort of addresses your needs. And one of the things which Kelly has already highlighted about our entire session, the hashtag Analytics Week, is a very concerted and a serious attempt to help retailers really use the power of analytics, that enormous power which Google Analytics or any other analytics package really sort of provides to you. So I'll directly dive into one of the most important things. And any analytics which doesn't have goals to really sort of track against, honestly speaking, lacks a sense of purpose. So at NetElixir, we have been championing this cause, which is called Purposeful Analytics. It's a very, very simplified version that analytics is all about measuring something, right? And unless and until you know as to what exactly is the purpose, what is the really point in diving in all the data and understanding all this stuff. So, for example, when we even launched this hashtag Analytics Week concept, our goal, let us say as a team, is for all of you to have at least one key takeaway per day. So this is a 4-day session or a series, and our goal at the team NetElixir is for you to really sort of finish or end this 4-day seminar with at least 4 takeaways from this session as such. So moving on to as to the importance of, so what do we do about it? We start with goals, and let us say a sample goal is expand the keyword portfolio that you advertise on, let us say in search advertising, right, by mining site search data. So any particular goal has to be measurable, it has to be time bound. You have to try to define it as precisely as possible, and absolute numbers are great. So again, for example, an absolute goal is I want to go ahead and really have a new customer acquisition rate of about 13% improvement in whatever the current value is. So it has to be a particular number, because without a number, honestly speaking, a goal is rather flaky. Once you have the goal, the next part is getting into the KPIs, or the key performance indicators. Now, KPIs are a great way to really track as to how the performance, how the numbers are really moving. And because again, what you can't really measure, you honestly speaking can't really control. So that's where the measurement is the essence of KPIs. And really the KPIs help you to keep everything on track. The last but not the least is once you have the KPIs, you have the goals, you sort of through the KPIs measure the deviation, you go ahead and try to identify a particular course of action, which we call the actionable insights, should be sort of derived from the KPIs. And you should really be able to implement some of these things that you have really gained from the insights. So again, if you really use a very simplistic 3-tier system, start with goals, have very specific custom KPIs defined, which will help you address the goals or measure the performance versus goals. And the third part is know as to what is the action that you really want to take based on certain insights that you have gained. And suddenly you'll be running a much more closed loop, much more tightly managed and programmed campaign as such. Moving on to some goal examples in Google Analytics, and the only reason we keep on referring to Google Analytics is, again, we had done a quick survey prior to starting this initiative Analytics Week, and found out that Google Analytics seems to be, at least for the majority of retailers, seems to be the preferred analytics software option as such. So we wanted to track the goal examples, and honestly speaking, Google Analytics gives you the flexibility of tracking multiple goals. It just depends on as to what you are looking at. You can track signups, you can track newsletter leads, you can track shopping cart completion, you can track resource center conversion, you can even track the Bazaar Voice campaign performance, etc. This is how typically the Google Analytics, the goal page would really look like. So, for example, let us say in this case, the goal conversion rate is about 113%, right? And you have the total abandonment rate is another goal, which has been set up is about 10%. And then you go in and you see the third goal, which is shopping cart completion rate as well. So again, the core point which I want to really impress upon you is the definition of the goal, or what you select as a goal, is, in my opinion, the most important thing that you can really even start with before you even, once you sort of launch a website, before even you start any campaign. Because you should really know as to what you really want to track and how exactly are you really sort of connecting what you want to track with very specific goals. Let me move on to the next part, defining an order conversion goal. Now in this, you go into the goals section of Google Analytics and you click on the new goal. And once you have clicked on the new goal, you essentially, this is a very standard, we have taken a universal analytics goal setup screen. Let us say we select a particular template, a revenue template, which is the checkout complete. And the next step, click on that, the goal setup is complete. You have to describe the goal. The goal description, just one thing to keep in mind is it's very important for you to understand who are the different stakeholders who would really be accessing this data. Because if the description is fairly vague, that you may understand it because you have really defined the nomenclature, but the other people who are also accessing the report or the particular format may not really be able to essentially understand it. So make it something which is easily understandable and which really conveys the core value as to what you really want to track. Moving on, I think in this case it is destination. The next step would be going ahead. So your goal setup is done, the goal description is done. Then essentially you sort of move on to the goal details. So in the goal details, you very specifically create a destination page URL, and then just go ahead and create the goal. So the Google Analytics software also gives you a predicted conversion rate as well. So based on the past 7 days, your conversion rate estimated for what you have just set up is about 3.76%. It allows you to re-verify also, and after that, you just go ahead and create the goal. You can also do the same thing for email sign-up conversions as well. The only thing is you sort of go through the entire same process. Rather than using a particular template, you just sort of check the button which mentions custom template. Right? Once you sort of custom template, you again have to describe the goal. And it's exactly the same process. So the only thing that we wanted to again share in this case is you have to click on check the custom button before you really set up the goals. So again, before I really move on to my second part, which is dashboards, I think the three core concepts to keep in mind regarding goals. The first is without a goal, there is no campaign. Honestly speaking, there is no online program, because goals really help you align your overall efforts, web efforts as such. The second part is once you start with goals, the KPIs really help you to control or monitor the deviations. But at the end of it, you should understand the insights that you are getting from all the data and what is the outcome, what is the overall action that you need to really take to really implement the insights that you have derived. Because insights without being actionable doesn't really make too much sense. The last part of my presentation before I hand over to Don is essentially a customized dashboard. Now, what is the purpose of a dashboard? A dashboard essentially helps us within a few seconds or a few minutes really keep a track of how the overall campaign is doing. I mean, it's a great snapshot of what is really happening, what is the entire story behind your web efforts as such. Right? This is a typical Google KPI dashboard. I mean, something that we have been sort of using ourselves internally. So we track the bounce rates primarily because someone just sort of jumping into the website and jumping off within almost immediately means that the content may not be engaging enough. So bounce rate is a great measure of engagement. Channels by device category, we would again recommend fairly highly, primarily because, I mean, you really need to know as to how your user base is accessing your website. The third one is obviously the revenue per channel grouping. So you would really know as to what are the different sources and what is the contribution to the overall revenues. Percentage of new sessions, again, geographic spread is great because you really need to know as to where the customers are coming from. Revenue per user per device category is a great measure because, I mean, this is what is called sometimes the RPU, ARPU, and so on and so forth. Average revenue per user. It gives you a sense how much can you really invest in each category and in an effective manner. The last part is revenue and sessions, very important because in many cases, I think the core fact which gets missed is there may not be a direct proportionality or the direct correlation between more sessions meaning more revenues. If that is the case, there is very clearly some problem in terms of how you are really deriving the content. People obviously are getting engaged, but they are not really converting into customers. We had created a checklist for the purposes of this presentation, which can really help you understand, specifically the e-commerce companies or the retailers understand as to what are some of the metrics that you may want to track on a regular basis. So let me share that with you as well. This is how you essentially set up the dashboards as such. I'll not spend too much time. It's a fairly standard conventional thing. So 10 valuable metrics for e-commerce marketers. So this is what, after a lot of the research that we have done over the last 10 years, so we have come up with what we believe is the 10-point checklist, which every e-commerce marketer should be using to track the web efforts as such. The first one is almost like a no-brainer, visits and unique visitors. So you want to really know as to how many visits are happening to the site and how many unique visitors are really coming to the site. But the third one, which is essentially what we call a KPI, is the percentage of new visits. So if 100 people are coming to the site, are you getting 20 people who are absolutely new, or are you getting 60 people who are absolutely new? The reason this KPI is important is it would really define your overall marketing effort. When I say marketing effort, the customer acquisition effort as well as the customer retention effort as well. Moving on, the next part is page views and unique page views. The third, again, the second KPI we would recommend very strongly is the pages per visit. We are getting a lot of visits, we are getting a lot of unique visitors, but they unfortunately are not really translating into an engagement. They are not really accessing multiple pages on the website as such. So what would you do about it? So again, as I had mentioned in the previous slide, the metrics, absolute numbers or can be, but again, the KPIs is what really defines your overall marketing effort and keeps them basically well aligned. The next, we would get into the next metric, which is transactions, revenue, conversion rate. Again, is a very important KPI, but we would think the third KPI that we would want to impress on you is per visit value. So every time you are getting a visit, if you really were to convert that into a dollar amount, how much would that number be? Very, very important, primarily because, I mean, any e-commerce marketer or any retailer, I mean, I am very sure are, or at least should be, focused purely in terms of generating revenue as such, right? So these three KPIs plus the other as metrics will really help you align your overall efforts on the website, as well as in terms of digital marketing efforts as well. The one last thing before I hand over to Don is all these parameters need to be measured per channel. So unless and until you really sort of measure this per channel, it becomes a huge problem in terms of really sort of going ahead and measuring the efficacy of different channels as such, right? So with that, I come to the end of my segment. Don will take you through the last part of our presentation, which is an advanced segment. Thank you. And any questions you may have regarding the KPIs goals, I'll be more than happy to answer them. You can feel free to use our question box to add your questions. Thank you.
Musical chairs today. Okay, our last topic, last but not least, is advanced segments. It's another topic that was been inspired by some of the work that we've done this year. I'll explain that in a bit. But in my opinion, running your e-commerce business without using advanced segments is much like our friend Adam from Mythbusters' attempt here to drive blind. It is my favorite feature in Google Analytics, and I think one of the most powerful features. Google provides you a very significant set of predefined advanced segments in Google Analytics. You find them under the, when you're adding a new segment, under the system category. And for example, I won't go through all of them, but you can see, for example, you could look at traffic by the type of device, by whether or not they bounced or not, some of the basic channels, organic versus paid, whether or not they converted or not. So it's a pretty good set and a pretty good starting point. But as we said like earlier, every business is different, right? So it's really the custom segments, the ability to build a custom segment that I think is the most powerful tool of Google Analytics, and frankly, something that's lacking in a lot of other quote-unquote enterprise-class analytics packages out there. And the way that you do that is you would just click on the plus segment button at the top of any of the reports that you're in. You'll get to a screen that looks like the one I'm showing you here. You click on New Segment in the upper left, and then you would click on Custom in the View Segment. And I'm showing you, excuse me, a view from our friends at Jeffers Pets of a couple of segments that I put together for them. For those of you who are not familiar, Jeffers sells pet supplies, supplies for horses and horseback riding, and supplies for people who raise livestock for a living. So you can see I highlighted the non-animal segment product page shopper, and immediately above that you can see a similar name that says non-animal segment and not product page shopper. And those are two segments I put together that actually will filter their data for users who are on their site who did not shop for an animal-related product, and I delineated between those that made it all the way to a product detail page and those that did not. And here is how that definition worked. In the last couple of years, there's been a lot of advancement in the advanced segments section and the custom section of Google Analytics. And this one down here on the lower left, advanced conditions, is one of the newer ones. And I just can't say it enough, a tremendously powerful capability. You can create a segment for just about any kind of behavior you want now in Google Analytics. So here I'm showing you I have two filters set up to exclude some sessions and include some sessions. I'm excluding everybody that looked at a page that had an animal name in the URL, because that's the way Jeffers' website is laid out. And I'm including everybody who had the word product in a URL that they looked at, because that's what denotes the product detail pages on Jeffers' site. One other thing I want to point out about custom segments is when you're defining a segment, over here on the right is a summary. And as you're defining these things in real time, this will compute and show you the percentage of users that that segment actually captures for the time period you have chosen. So again, it's a super powerful tool, one that you all should be using. And frankly, the reason that I'm talking about it today is in 83% of the audits we've done this year, we have found that the account does not have any custom segments set up. And it's almost doing your business a disservice not to be using some type of custom segment. And custom segments are to a web marketer what the microscope is to a neurosurgeon. It is your ability to get to that micro-level tracking so that you can really understand the behavior and the response to certain actions you may have taken, whether that's a marketing campaign, it could be a change to the structure of your website, but you can pretty much define a custom segment to measure that and look at the change in that segment. And I'm going to show you just two examples from the user type report that you can look at, for example, for new versus returning users. And this is a snippet of the heading of that report, and you can see that I have three segments chosen. I have the entire site, an animal and product shopper, and the non-animal segment product page shopper that I just showed you. And when you're using custom segments or multiple advanced segments, This is across any of the metrics that are available to you in the reports in Google Analytics. And for example, the example I'm using is the new versus returning. So it's very easy for you to understand, for example, for Jeffers, right? Animal and product shopper tends to be a good chunk of their audience, right? So what percentage of those are new? How well am I doing in bringing new visitors to that part, the core part of my product offering? And with that, that concludes our talk today. We'll get to Q&A in a second, but before I get there, I want to just highlight a couple of some things for you to think about based on what we covered today. First and foremost, determine whether or not you might have some of those misattributed traffic issues. You can go to your acquisition report, go to all traffic, and go to the source median report, and just do a search for not set, and see if you have those values. And then you can take action to fix them using, if it's the mixed case situation, as the filter that I mentioned, or using custom channel groups to look at your historical data. Second thing, use goals to help you focus on your initiatives and to measure them quickly and easily and keep them on track. Similarly with KPIs. KPIs are, I always love the phrase manage by noise level, right? So KPIs are an ability for you to manage by noise level with your e-commerce business. Using dashboards. When I was the e-commerce director for that specialty retailer, I actually had custom reports set up with a different tab for each of the audience. And I had one for my VP, one for our CEO, and one for me. And it's very easy to replicate that thought process in dashboards. And you can email dashboards to people so they can get them once a week, whatever time period you'd like. And finally, custom tool, something every e-commerce retailer should be taking advantage of. And like I said, one of the most powerful things in Google Analytics. I can't say that enough. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Kelly. I appreciate you guys attending today.
All right, so we at NetElixir were fanatically analytical, so we thought we'd include a fun daily thought experiment after every webinar. So here's a quick glimpse at it. You can find this at our NetElixir University on LinkedIn. So what you do is you will look at the puzzle, and every correct answer or any of your answers submit to university@netelixir.com. Every correct answer receives an entry to win a tablet, and all of the winners will be contacted at the end of our webinar series. And don't forget to take action now. Get your complimentary mid-year health check for Google Analytics, PPC, or SEO. Email us now at university@netelixir.com with the subject line for the analysis you're looking to receive. So now we have a few minutes for our Q&A session. So we're just going through the great questions that came through. So we have the first question that came through. Can you build a custom segment for customers who buy a specific product?
Yeah, this is Don, and let me just, yes you can, and I'll just show you real quick. I just want to toggle over there. Trying to get the where's my Google Analytics? The Jeffers one. There it is. Terrific. Okay. Sorry. Showing up. Okay. All right. So I want to say thank you to my friends at Jeffers for letting me use their account as a live demo. The question was, can you set up a custom segment to look at a specific product? And the answer is yes, and there are actually two ways you can do that. This is the defining a new segment screen, and I'm in the e-commerce tab. And you can see right down here it says product and product category, and you have your typical Google pick list of how you want to set your conditions for matching, right? So, but for example, I'll just pick the first one. And this is product is going to match on name, and you can see that there were 89 people who bought that specific product. If you are someone who's more familiar with your SKU numbers rather than your product names, under conditions, you can pull down on the drop down here, and you could do a search for product SKU. And just the same way, you can, let's see, let's try this JVBB and see if anything comes up. All right? So you can actually just type in a product SKU. So we had 4 people who bought this specific product. So the answer to that is yes, you can build a custom segment to look at specific products. What's the next question? Let's see. How often do you recommend that goals be redefined and evaluated? I think in terms of, depending on how you define your goals, right, it would be, the time to redefine them would probably be based on A, are you changing anything architecturally that would affect the way you have your goals defined? And B, are you changing anything from a marketing standpoint where you might want to actually modify or add a goal based on some change in the element of your marketing? For example, if you have goals that are based on URLs, destination URLs, and you go through a platform transition with all your URLs change, you obviously want to go back and revisit all of your goals that are based on destination URL and redefine them with the new URL structure. What Google Analytics certifications would you consider useful for a PPC specialist in terms of further learning the platform as well as furthering his or her career? Okay. The question was, what Google Analytics certification would we consider be valuable for a PPC specialist? It's worthwhile, I think, that the Google Analytics individual qualification is the one certification you get for Google Analytics, and that is worthwhile for any practitioner of web analytics or anyone using Google Analytics. It's a you will find, I mean, as Kelly mentioned, I've been using Google Analytics for quite some time, and I know just going through the prep for taking that test for the first time when I took it, there were elements of Google Analytics I wasn't aware of, right? So even if you're some of those people who said they've been using it for 5 years and you haven't gone through that process, it's worth going through because it'll open your eyes to things that you probably weren't aware of in GA. Yep.
Okay, another question that just came in. Besides email signups and conversions, what are some other goal settings people track?
Well, I guess some of the common, think about any event that you would want to track on your website. So, for example, if you do content marketing and you've got, white papers or anything or slide decks out there, and you'd like to know how many people download it, that's something you could set up and track as a event goal. Similarly, if you're in a business that does lead generation, like I was before I joined NetElixir, and the definition of an online lead for you was someone filling out a contact form. If your contact form happens to have a thank you page with a unique URL to it, you can easily set up a goal to track submissions of that form using a destination URL goal setting. If you happen to have a contact form which doesn't change the URL, there is a way that you can track it as an event just by adding a snippet of code to the, like, for example, your submit button. And again, you'd be able to track that in Google Analytics as well. So downloads, form conversions. Some people like to have videos embedded, and you actually can put a tag on the, for example, the play button, the pause button, fast forward, rewind, if you really want to get anal about it, so to speak. So as I said, just about any interaction that you want to measure in some way, you pretty much can do that in Google Analytics. There was a question about average conversion rate for e-commerce sites, and that's it's a pretty broad question. it's going to vary by industry, right? But, you know, rule of thumb is, I think most people will say, you know, if you're doing 2%, you're doing well, right? So, but it does vary. If you go download our paper that we did on mobile traffic last year, we have some, you know, segmented data in there, and you can see conversion rate vary significantly by industry sector. There was a question about setting up a goal to track number of leads. I saw. Someone asked about setting up a goal, you know, to track, let's say, you know, I want to set my goal to be 10,000 leads per month. And goals really track things that happened on your site. But there is a feature which you may or may not be aware of that would actually let you know how well you're tracking towards, let's say, an objective like 10,000 leads per month, which are the custom alerts. And I'll just show you real quick where that is. Still on mine? Okay, good. If you go to Intelligence Events Overview, yes, I want to discard changes. And here is custom alerts, and you would click on Manage Custom Alerts, go to New Alert, and like, for example, down here, I'm going to say this applies to all traffic, and I can put in here, I'm in the wrong view. For example, I'm going to use transactions. I'm in the testing view, right? Right, and you could actually set any kind of condition, numerical condition, right? You could say is less than, is greater than, decreases by more than, increases by more than. You can use percentages, right? And then you could set this alert to happen on a daily basis, weekly basis, or monthly basis, right? So, for example, 10,000 leads per month equates to what? About 300 plus a day. So you actually could set up a daily metric alert for let me know when my leads exceeded 300 leads a day, and let me know when my leads did not meet 300 leads a day. And you'd have that alert every day to kind of know how you're performing without having to log in and look at your Google Analytics. And you can get those alerts via email and also sent to your mobile phone. So in terms of tracking against like a numerical objective like that, alerts are a real good way to do that. There's a question about AdWords only tracking using GCLIDs versus it used to have UTM parameters. I'm guessing that question is related to the change. I can't read your writing. I'm suggesting that that's related to the new change, right? With the ad, which is coming up in July.
We don't need to tag.
Oh, you don't need to tag anymore.
Yes, yes. Because previously we used to tag UTM parameters in AdWords, but with this new global unique tracking parameters, we don't need to tag UTM parameters because they are directly redirected to those pages, and that gets tracked by Google Analytics.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Venkat. That was Venkat, one of our account managers, chiming in there to help there. How are we doing? Got 2 more minutes. Any more? Someone asked about the recorded webinar. It will be available on our site
Later tomorrow.
Later tomorrow? Oh, we have an answer to the puzzle. That's good. I have to find out if that's right. There was another one. Yeah, that was the one that he just, yeah. Where's the other one?
We're done.
We're done? You got them all? That's it. Thanks, Dr. Kelly. I appreciate everyone's questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Remember, you will receive an email shortly with the links to the presentation slides, so be on the lookout for that. And don't forget to join us for tomorrow's session with our Google expert, Marlena, who will be running through the key benefits of Google's Universal Analytics. Thank you so much, and we see you tomorrow.